By 1912, Willa Cather had reached the absolute summit of American journalism. Working from the bustling center of New York City, she wielded a level of editorial authority that few writers, and almost no women, ever attained. As the managing fiction and poetry editor for McClure's magazine, she controlled what the country was reading. She handpicked the stories, decided who got published, and even assigned the critics to review them. But privately, she hated it. Sifting through piles of inexperienced, mediocre writing exhausted her. She complained to friends that spending her days fixing other people's prose felt like sitting in a tepid bath. Eventually, you completely lose the sensation of hot or cold. She was trapped on a fast train of her own making. The prestige of the job satisfied her childhood hunger for power, but she recognized the danger. If she didn't jump off soon, the daily grind would consume her talent and cost her her immortal soul. Nearing 40, Cather finally wrote a novel of her own. She saw Alexander's Bridge as her ticket out. The book was a sophisticated drama of high society, bouncing between drawing rooms in Boston and London. She deliberately mirrored the literary giants she admired, attempting to sound exactly like the distinguished cosmopolitan men of letters. It fell flat. The critics were unimpressed. But worse, Cather herself knew it was a hollow performance. The moment it went to print, she recognized that her characters were stiff, and she was faking a voice to please the elite. Her friend and mentor, the writer Sarah Orne Jewett, diagnosed the problem perfectly. She told Cather to stop imitating others. To write anything of value, she had to find her own quiet center and write from there. Cather realized that the distinguished editor she played in New York was just one version of herself. To create something enduring, she would have to set aside the elite expectations of the city and search for a voice she hadn't used since she was a girl. In 1883, 9-year-old Willa Cather was uprooted from a sheltered life in Virginia's Green Valleys and thrown into the wild expanse of the American West. She arrived on the Nebraska frontier and felt as though her skin had been ripped off. She described the landscape as a piece of flat sheet iron. There were no trees, no creeks, no hills. She cried for a year, terrified by a vastness that made her feel completely erased. She watched her neighbors, recent immigrants from places like Bohemia and Sweden, huddle in dark dugouts carved directly into the dirt, fighting against starvation and freezing temperatures. Some, crushed by the isolation, took their own lives. To survive this traumatic lack of identity, young Cather invented her own. She chopped off her hair, wore suspenders and a derby hat, and started signing her letters William Cather, M.D. She demanded to be noticed. Every single ambition that followed, from her relentless college writing to running New York media, was a defense mechanism. She built a towering, authoritative persona to guarantee she would never feel so small and erased again. In 1912, Cather followed Jewett's advice. She took a leave of absence and traveled deep into the American Southwest to break her routine. At first, the sheer scale of the desert caused her chest to tighten. The endless, empty horizon brought back the exact panic she had felt as a child, first confronting the Great Plains. But walking among the ancient cliff dwellings, surrounded by the physical bones of thousands of years of human history, something shifted. The heavy, exhausted New York personality she had built simply let go of her. She felt it dissolve into the clear blue sky, leaving her free. She returned east and walked away from her salary, her influence, and the magazine entirely. She quit McClure's to work strictly for herself, and instead of writing another polite society drama, she pointed her pen straight back into the dirt. She drew from the raw, unpolished memories of the Bohemian and Swedish farmers she had grown up with. The resulting books, O Pioneers and My Antonia, were unlike anything else in American fiction. She elevated the struggle for survival on the plains to the level of an epic, earning the kind of critical respect that her first, more sophisticated novel never touched. Her work finally held weight because she stopped trying to observe her subjects from a distance. Setting aside her New York career allowed her childhood memories to finally dictate the rhythm of her prose. Within a decade, Cather's leap of faith had paid off. She won the Pulitzer Prize, her books sold in massive numbers, and she established herself as an American literary giant. But the ground was shifting underneath her. The unimaginable trauma of the First World War birthed a new, cynical era. The Jazz Age writers, leaning into raw urban realism, viewed the old world of pioneer optimism as entirely dead. Critics and younger authors like Ernest Hemingway turned against her. They mocked her style as old-fashioned, accusing her of retreating to a frontier past while ignoring modern civilization. Cather refused to bend to the new trends. She stated flatly that the world had broken in two around 1922, and she belonged with the former half. This was a conscious artistic choice to preserve a sense of wholeness in an age of displacement. She knew exactly how dark the world was getting, but she chose to counter it by holding fast to her own values. As her fame grew, she physically retreated. She ordered her friends to burn her personal letters, strictly forbade her books from being adapted into Hollywood movies, and even signed hotel registers with false names to avoid being recognized. She poured this isolation into novels like The Professor's House and Death Comes for the Archbishop. Instead of young pioneers, she wrote about solitary, aging figures sitting in empty rooms, facing the agonizing reality of what happens when the meaning of your life fades before your physical life ends. The woman who once fought for power in New York eventually chose to vanish from the public eye. For Cather, the ultimate success was found in this quiet surrender, the courage to let the second self dissolve into the air and sun of the world she had finally captured.